Hi, everyone. This is Kip Simpson. I run this channel here on YouTube. Back in 2013, a member of my family was brutally murdered by this woman. On screen, you can see here Sharon Baksh. She killed my step-great-grandmother, stabbing her 149 times. Now, after just 33 months behind bars, she's getting an outrageously early release. I'm just going to read from this article some pretty disturbing details here, but this is what they are saying. This news is just coming out last week. No member of my family attended this hearing. Some were not sure if they could actually be in the same room as this woman, and those who did, they explained in this article as well. I haven't had a chance to talk to everyone personally since then, but the courts actually told them that they had missed a deadline, so they were not even allowed to attend. A lot of outrage over how the courts have handled this. This is what they're saying. I'm just going to look at this article posted 2 days ago. They're saying what an outrage this is. Alita Rusnell, this is the name of my step-great-grandmother. She was 89 years old. She's a sweet and beloved great-grandmother who just joked with her family that she was feeling so well she was destined to live to 100. Thanks to her cruel crack addict neighbor, that wasn't to be. Just a few days later, Sharon Baksh broke into her Oshawa apartment and murdered the widow, plunging a knife at least 149 times into her frail body, fatally penetrating her heart, lung, and abdomen. It's hard to comprehend the evil rage inherent in someone who could stab a defenseless old woman so many times during a robbery, yet just over 5 years later, her killer is free. This is Alita Rusnell. She was stabbed 149 times. This is my step-great-grandmother. This took place in 2013, and it took a while for this to go through the courts in a stunning plea deal that was given to the killer in the midst of her second-degree murder trial in 2016. So the event took place in 2013. I remember my family was dealing with this for some time. It took a long time for this to go through the courts. They were hoping that for them being much more patient than they should have been with what the courts were doing, that they would at least get some kind of justice. And this is what ended up happening. The killer was given a stunning plea deal in the midst of her second-degree murder trial that took place in 2016, the actual trial. Killer was allowed to plead guilty to manslaughter, and completely ridiculous. Everyone that I was talking to about this, family members saying that this was completely outrageous. Looking at the details of the story, everything that we know, for them to allow her to downgrade this to a manslaughter charge from second-degree murder was completely outrageous. Nonetheless, the manslaughter charge, which was already downgraded, was supposed to carry a 12-year sentence. So 12 years was still not enough. Should have been full second-degree murder charges. The courts gave her a deal, a stunning plea deal that was supposed to be 12 years. That 12 years, with 1.5 credit for every day she spent in pretrial custody since her 2013 arrest, that left the killer with just 7 years and 8 months still to serve. But only 33 months later, so this woman who did this has actually only spent 33 months behind bars for this. Convicted killer has now been released on day parole and is living in a halfway house in the GTA, Greater Toronto area. During her first month, she is free to be away for a stretch of 3 nights without any supervision. By the end of May, she's eligible to have an unsupervised 3-night pass every week. The murdered woman's family is understandably furious and terrified. Quote from one of my family members, the Toronto Sun posted in their article just talking about this. We have a spokesman for our family here says that that now she's going to be someone else's neighbor. Now, this is one of the worrying things. We didn't think in a million years that they would let her out in such a short period of time. None of the family was at the parole board hearing last week. One of Russell's sons knew that he couldn't trust himself to be in the same room with his mother's killer. Others were torn about attending, and by the time they decided to go, they were told they'd missed the deadline and could no longer attend. Now, they're reeling. For 25 years, Rusnell lived in a basement apartment she'd lovingly decorated and tended to the garden she'd planted in the back. In 2011, the killer and her boyfriend moved in across the hall. So this is the apartment. I've been to this apartment a number of times before this actually happened. It's this basement apartment here. I've been inside that building before. They just close off here the remaining details, saying the court has heard that the killer was 34. The killer, who was 34 years old, she was a crack addict, according to the court, who'd lost her kids to Children's Aid and had already stabbed her boyfriend in the arm on the morning of June 1st, 2013, when he wouldn't give her more money for drugs. Rusnell's family didn't like how the murderer was always asking her for cash before this took place. The kind woman would give her $20 and shrug off her family's concerns. She was on a tiny pension in this little basement apartment, her relative says. She was just one of the sweetest women you could ever meet. She'd give her money and say, I felt bad for her. I didn't want her to go hungry. What could I do? On the day she was murdered, Rusnell had let Baksh use her phone several times. For her kindness, her neighbor later cut a hole in her window screen and broke in when she thought the elderly woman would be in her bath. Rusnell interrupted the break-in. The murderer attacked her with vicious violence. She stabbed her almost 150 times. She had a broken nose. She had glass embedded in her head. There were chunks of her hair missing, her relative says, choking back tears. Then the murderer left her apartment and put her clothes in the washing machine. When they arrested her, her boyfriend called police. The family was assured that Baksh would be going away for a very long time. We cannot believe that we had to fight harder to try and keep our mother's killer in jail than she had to get out of jail. It's another quote. It's hell every day, every single day. Just think to yourself what she did. My word, just read the autopsy report. And now the murderer is back in the community. I just can't believe they let her out. It was just a slap on the wrist. We're devastated, the family is, and who can blame them? I don't really have anything to add. It's completely outrageous, obviously. Leave a comment. I will follow up on this channel again soon. Thanks, everyone.